So I've been blessed with a number of opportunities in my lifetime, but I've learned from an early age that when an opportunity comes by and you let it go, there's a good chance it may not come back, or it could be a very long time for it to come back, or maybe the next time it comes back, you won't be able to act on it and capitalize on it in the same way because your circumstances will have changed. I'm recording this on March 6th of 2021, almost a year after we declared the pandemic. And this whole year has been marked by disappointment in myself at how society as a whole has let opportunity after opportunity slip through its fingers in terms of our views on things, in terms of our culture. So the first opportunity I want to talk about. So last year, a year ago today, if you had asked me what would happen if this pandemic were to go on for a year, I would have assumed people would change their lifestyles for the better, right? Fewer people would be smoking and drinking because they need to take care of their immune systems. Fewer people would be drinking soda. Certainly, we'd be trying to get off of prescription drugs because we realize how the supply of drugs that we might need could be disrupted, so we might rethink. I always found it weird how much people were willing to spend on prescription drugs just to maintain their habits, right? So, for example, recently there's an HIV vaccine that you can take right before you do some kind of risky activity, right? I'm sure the drug probably costs, well, not to mention the human costs of all the adverse effects, just the financial cost itself. I can't think of a risky activity I'm willing to spend $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year just to maintain, right? I would rather find a new hobby, but that's myself. Okay, that's a very extreme example, obviously, but look at how many people take high blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication, or how many people deal with type 2 diabetes and take all the medications associated with it just to maintain their lifestyle of chronically poisoning themselves, right? And I thought COVID-19 would change that equation now that not only do the drugs have a huge human and financial cost when they always did, right? Now they also have the potential of being cut off, right? I thought that would change. But when I go out and look at the real world, some people have shifted their mentality in the way that I mentioned. But the other people have gone even more further in the other extreme, right? I see two classes of people. Some people use this as an opportunity to clean up their lifestyle. Other people go, I'm going to die anyway. I'm going to smoke more, drink more, go even more extreme, right? I have noticed that, by the way. But you turn on the news and there's never any advice on this, right? Wash your hands, put on a mask, social distancing, don't travel, or what else is there? But never quit smoking, or I guess quit smoking still comes up, but it's always been there, right? Never cut back on sugar, right? Actually, I think you should quit sugar altogether. Cutting back on sugar almost guarantees that you're going to fail, but that's another story for another time. There's never any advice on getting exercise, right? And so I'm really disappointed at society. This was a once-in-a-100-year opportunity, and we have let it slip by. But I'm glad that some people have found it themselves. I wish it was more of a mainstream. Just the other day, I almost hit a deer with my car, and I looked at the deer, and it dawned on me that, that deer looked pretty healthy. Deer, certainly, they don't put on a mask. They certainly don't social distance, right? If they did, their population would disappear, right? And they might have a concept of washing their hands, but you know what? They don't have clean chlorinated water like us humans do. But they do have a healthy lifestyle, right? They don't have access to junk food. I guess nowadays they kind of do because they live in our cities, but they don't have access to drugs to poison themselves. They certainly don't have access to cigarettes and alcohol, right? And so I'm really disappointed at that. Okay, number one. Number two, I'm really disappointed at how we measure our timekeeping and our schedule. I thought for sure that with the advent of remote work and social distancing, that we would at least get rid of daylight savings time. I really did. because we'd realize that we're not really saving anything anymore, let alone any daylight, right? People can work whatever hours they do. The other thing I would love is that we get rid of the 24-hour clock altogether. See, I used to have very bad insomnia, but during COVID-19, I've been sleeping very well, actually, because I've been sleeping on my own timetable. And I think a lot of people could say that. I think very few people actually have insomnia. They have trouble sleeping on somebody else's timetable. And now that work is remote anyway, I think we should accommodate that, right? And from talking to most of my friends and people online, most people sleep at a cycle that's slightly more than 24 hours, right? I generally do very well on the way I like to, the example I love to give is that every time I fly back from the East Coast to the West Coast, I have a couple really, really good days where I got everything I wanted to do done. I collapsed when I hit the pillow, and I actually woke up with enough time to take a shower and get ready for work. So I need an extra 3 hours like every 2 days, right? One time at the beginning of the pandemic, I actually practiced sleeping on a Martian timetable. And I did very well. Mars has a day that's 24 hours, 37 minutes. I downloaded a clock online and I followed it for, basically until I wrapped around the clock. And I felt really well during that 1 month or 2 months that I was doing this. Go watch my video. I think I talked about my progress as I was doing this. But at the very least, we should get rid of daylight savings time. Okay. I'm a little bit disappointed that, this one has happened, not to the extent that I was hoping, though. Our views on where we want to live, right? So right now I'm recording this in Wallace, Idaho. I've moved out of Seattle, where I still work. But now that people can work remotely, it makes you wonder, do people need to crowd in big cities, especially in light of social distancing and all that? This one has gone a little bit more than the others, and I'm pleased about that. I don't like the city, not just because of the social gatherings and all that, but I have anxiety problems, and cities can be very fast-paced. To give you an idea, before the pandemic, I used to spend a lot of time living in my car. And out here in the mountains, I've spent some time in my car, not as much as I have in Seattle. But I've been in between apartments, and while I was moving from Missoula to Wallace and all that. And when I was living in my car in Seattle, people, they see me as some kind of a hardened drug addict or something. Every interaction I get with somebody, right? Even if it's really simple, they just need me to move my car so they can clean the street. I mean, just tell me that. Don't treat me like an addict. Bang, bang, bang! Get it! We need to clean the street, right? Especially... I've run into that in Missoula too. I don't get that kind of treatment. And I think it's stupid. You got somebody who's just woken up who needs to move their car. Do you really want them shaking while they're moving their car? And do you want people to be so hardened up on that? See, I used to dread having to take sleep medications when I was living in my car because I never knew if an hour or two later somebody would ask me to move my car, and I was still high on the medications. I take a very high dose of melatonin. I used to really debate if I should take it or not because I would worry that I would need to move my car. I wouldn't seem to have that kind of concern here in Missoula because people are a little bit more understanding. You know, they're not going to wake me up like that. And if I explain, no, I've just taken my medication, I think people would be a little bit more understanding of that. And so cities are just very fast-paced, so too fast for me. And it's not even just living out of my car. It's also at the workplace. It's also when I go out, which gets me to the next point. I wish we would change our views on marriage and children. And, we talk about marriage equality. There's never an unmarriage equality as well. And I was hoping COVID-19 would resolve some of that. But I turn on the news, and every time there's a COVID-19 case or a death, it's always a family person who leaves behind a spouse and children. It's never a single guy who leaves behind unfinished projects, right? Maybe some single guy was getting ready to write the world's strongest AI for the game of backgammon, and he leaves that project behind, right? Maybe this single guy was going out to look for his future wife, and he caught COVID-19, and he leaves behind the wife he never had, right? Somebody out there is now without a husband, right? That they don't even know, right? There's never I know it sounds silly, but if we really wanted equality, that should also be part of the news, right? I know it sounds silly, but we're not even taking a step in that direction, right? If anything, it's the other way around, right? Now family is more important than ever, which I don't disagree with, but not everybody has the luxury of having a family to leave behind if they get COVID-19, right? Not everybody, right? And I think there should be more equality there. I wish there was more emphasis on equality for interracial relationships as well. I don't see it represented as much when I turn on the news and hear about COVID-19, right? It's always the stereotypical white with white, black with black, right? A black person dies of COVID-19, they leave behind their black spouse, right? Very rarely do I see an interracial relationship, even though there are a good percentage of Americans, by the way. And I'm kind of disappointed we didn't use an opportunity like this to portray some more of that, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I accept you for who you marry, but please accept me for my choice not to get married, at least at this moment in time, right? During the past year, most people have not been able to go on vacation, right? I was hoping there would be more acceptance for people who have a different view of vacation than everybody else. I have anxiety, and going to Las Vegas, going to a beach in Florida, that's just not my choice of vacation. And I think a lot of times, depending on where I've worked in the past, a lot of times the reason when I submit a request for vacation and it gets denied is that people have a disagreement with how I vacation, right? I like to go to the Computer Olympiad. I like to come out here to the Rockies. And to somebody whose view of vacation is Las Vegas, Florida, it's very easy to deny that, right? Especially when you have 5 other people who want to go on vacation, right? I was hoping COVID-19 would change that, right? Because the people who like to vacation the way I do, we get to continue doing it, right? I still got to go to the Computer Olympiad, even though it was online, right? People like that I come out here and have more room to social distance anyway, right? I thought COVID-19 would change that equation, but it hasn't, at least not to the extent that I had wished. Anyway, zoom out a little bit, right? Don't get stuck in your little bubble of this is how we marry, this is how we go on vacation, this is how we measure time, this is how we eat, this is stop. Zoom out and see all that for what it is, and see what's out there, right? Let's face it, we still got some time before COVID-19 is gone. Let's not throw this opportunity away.